I mean,
That's amazing. What a shot.
yeah, I think that would kind of
You got 2 iPhones?
Yeah, trying to stay online.
Then they all fall out, right?
Well, first they have to come in. First they have to.
I'm
The
thinking
other
of
one,
making a video of
7-year-old.
myself.
She's in the falling out.
right.
One thing I remember that I love
Come back.
Everybody needs one of those. The most important.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, it feels great.
Currency.
What's your number?
First solid.
Yeah, so
Put it in
I'm
my
actually,
window.
For the granddaughter?
Yeah.
I just moved back from Los Angeles.
First solid food.
Started writing again.
So that's her first. You can see a little bit of it on her chin, so it must not have been her first movie, but I think they started recording it.
Ready?
Pretty good.
Yeah.
He's got a daughter and 2 granddaughters in New Jersey.
I found a few
Yeah.
old
Area code 415
He's from Buffalo, right?
668
Grew up in Buffalo.
0933.
It's hard to question.
That's why my friend John has a place in Tampa Bay.
Don't knock the power supply out the wall.
I said he was going over here.
Otherwise the camera will fall down.
As well as here. I just have a place in Tampa Bay. I tried going by there. I love the culture of New York City. But
Yeah.
I don't like being cold for 6 months.
No, I get it. That was the place I used to live in Los Angeles.
It's a trade-off. It's a trade-off.
Oh, it's just completely.
Winter lasts too long.
Exactly. When you come around to probably February, if it would end in February,
April and
it
there's
wouldn't be
snow
so
on it.
bad. If it would end in February, sunlight. No spring or no fall.
We visited after the grandkid was born in March, so we visited mid-April. It actually had like snow in mid-April. This is in Southwest New Jersey, a little bit west of it.
Working for Jack and Tyler.
Wow. This was this past year? They had a very bad winter.
This year, yeah.
Right?
You go every week.
I heard about their winter.
Oh yeah, they had cold stuff going on. I think we went in January, about 5 years ago. My birthday was in January. So it was kind of a gig. It was like 15 degrees.
About the same time as my alarm went off this morning. It
It turns out there's a big difference between 15 degrees and 25 degrees. 25 degrees is more manageable.
15 will go right through your clothes.
Yeah.
And he was just sort of in that.
But Florida dodged this whole winter. I mean, every time I looked at the Weather Channel, everybody was freezing. Even Atlanta. And then you had this little peninsula sticking out where it was like,
Yeah.
it's about 16.
Actually, surprisingly, the only ones that I found were right at Berkeley.
It gets incredibly hot. That's what, that's why
Oakland, I found
cools you down.
That was like first Tuesday.
Now, I lived in Atlanta for, in 72, and it's high in the day. It's like, it's elevated. You don't, it's got nice and,
I guess I'm a
it's got a
little
cooling effect
spoiled
to
by
it.
having
You
that
expect it.
turn.
You go down to the flatlands, southern Georgia, and
Everybody,
city wedding stage,
all the way up to the all the way up to the
plateau.
So everybody, all the stations taken, all the stations
Tasting weather.
You have so many poets that, when you get to read, it's like half the people don't shut up the time. It's just a really big,
Lucy.
I don't know, it's a big following, I guess. I'm not sure if it's just the area, there's just, obviously, a huge population helps.
And I went to New Orleans,
A lot of artists, but
and they had this like big convention
yeah,
spread across 7 hotels.
you find something
And the hotels are a couple blocks away from one another. So when you go from one event to another event, it didn't make any sense to take a cab. Walking, and by the time you got to the trench, you were ready.
out a way to deal with it. Like I need like a, someone that's a place in the summer for 2 months.
Young and old, it's everything, but.
But I didn't have the software to go around.
Basically, this guy told me.
2 years ago, we drove across the country, we took the southerly route. Southwest was like a Bering Island, this time we took a more northerly route, and there was like rain. Half on the weather said it was rain. All the way to the Sierra, the mountains, I guess, Sacramento, and then it stopped. But I was glad to see a lot of rats.
Absolutely.
Getting a moisture.
Even that is. Oh yeah, it's faster notification. That's on the radio.
You're in a terrible multi-year drought here, aren't you?
Yeah.
We got a couple days.
The cat didn't freak out. Being
Oh,
around.
I was outside, so we get the fog.
You know what I find interesting is the succulents here go back. You know, the succulents, you see that they form the flower structure.
Oh,
I
yeah.
had
If you ever get a chance, if you're ever in Los Angeles.
Like that, I don't know what the hell it is. They like nice, foggy, cool type weather. Florida, blasted by the sun. They don't do quite as well.
It's really, it's a lot of,
Gotta be the right kind of plant.
African American influence.
Yeah, but you would think the succulent can handle it, but it's not.
You would think, yeah. I grew up in Southern California.
My cat.
Basically,
My
Los
cat.
Angeles is the other thing that takes care of
Regardless of all the bullshit I've
So I didn't, it wasn't until I got into high school, and then we got on a trip going north of Santa Barbara, and all of a sudden, it was like, on the desert, and everything was green.
Everything's okay. Yeah, Santa Barbara's great.
From there on north, everything
He came
you know, if you live in Los Angeles, you're used to either it's asphalt or it's artificially planted, you know, palm trees or whatever. And if there is something that's green and moist, it's because somebody gardened it. And I planted it and artificially cared for it.
How much rain do they get?
There's about 2 weeks a year in that area when it's wet, sometime in December. Sometimes early January.
I've been there a bunch of times, but I've never really figured that one out.
I already got 2 weeks. The rest is the.
All right, has everyone signed in that wanted to sign in?
Another beautiful day, right?
Okay, and welcome, thanks to everybody for coming. I'm always afraid of getting here alone. First of all, let's thank Teddy and Fiona for our... Let's acknowledge our features in the house, Gerardo Pacheco. Our main teacher is Cy, over there in the corner of the house. And I'll be MC for the first half, and Greg Pond will be MC for the second half. Okay, so the first readers will be Buford, Bunton, Owen Dunkel, Christian, and Marcia Campbell. Give it up for Buford.
All right. I'm kind of an old man, so 40 years ago I was doing this, what I'm reading about right now. It's called the Atlanta Public Schools. A good, but at the same time, I think, difficult time. One of the most difficult times I ever had was with the Atlanta Public Schools. The first experience was the best. With a teacher who was also a writer and later wrote a book about the great writer Margaret Walker. Jackie Carmichael, the teacher writer, encouraged me as her aide, even though I was green. The first really challenging job I had outside of juvenile hall's psychotic atmosphere with its basically condemned teens and its oppressive administration. Here, I had a good teacher, a good second teacher with whom I also worked, a good principal, and a good assistant principal. Jackie did everything she could as a 40-year-old experienced teacher working in middle school after years of working with more mature high school students. Here, the 6th to 8th graders were a little babyish and needed a firm hand, and Jackie could provide that. There was a particularly challenging student who was in the 6th grade, but read at maybe a kindergarten or 1st grade level. This always affects the student's behavior, as it did in Jesse's case. Sometimes students are class clowns when presented with the challenge of little chance of success. And Jesse did some of this, but it was more serious than that with Jesse. And he got into a few fights and walked out of class at times, I think in frustration. One time I was giving Jesse a soul handshake, and Jackie said I was getting a little bit too much soul. She liked Jesse, but had over 30 kids several times a day and didn't believe in, quote, coddling kids, I guess you could say. She was tough, but I was anything but. If she were out, and sometimes she was, maybe only once or twice, the school principal, Mr. Powers, or a secretary more likely, might not bring in a substitute, which meant there was me in my rookie year at 24 years old, that the kids might go a little crazy, which they did. I don't like to even think about it. But let's just say I was glad when Jackie was well and got back to the classroom. How did things go, she asked. Okay, I think was all I said. She probably had gotten the whole story from her friend who taught across the hallway, another ex-high school teacher who yelled at kids a bit and did things like stop in mid-loud correction to take some in-person message from the office, going soft in voice, and then yelling a bit more once the office person was gone. I had trouble with the discipline all that year, but working with Jackie who became a friend and took me to her AME church a couple of times, and our mutual writer's souls seemed to click. It was too bad that she left after the first year that I was at that school. I would work hard for a year and a half there until I got a credential in the middle of the year and went on to be a teacher, in trouble up to my eyeballs for the next year and a half.
Now, Owen Dunkel.
Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Now we can.
Sonnet at Starbucks. Ballroom, rust, love, laughed, orisons, cookie, lend me your comb, vowel, hornets, Berkshire, Jodfords, the sturdy Calliope. The herd becomes a stallion, King Farouk, hook of joy, descending. It all happens here. Lines matriculate on the sky. Rockin' Roberts, papers away. God in heaven, rejoice, hallelujah. 20 years after the hallelujah chorus, another sleepy hollow day. Buses rumble to the sound of nothing. China Basin going somewhere. The flute becomes a mystic. Al Jarvis, the make-believe Hall of Mirrors, man is champion of the imagination. Fog. The fog is like misty, moisty cement. It hovers near the ocean, as inevitably it will blow away. Couplet at Starbucks. The day plods by like a farmer. The sun sits on a metamorphosis of folly. cathedral. Sad buttresses fly across the air. It careens erratically upwards to reach for a god of sky. At the beach, the brown and white speckled seagulls, the old man listening to his radio on the torn white couch. Pizza. Crust 1, crust 2, onions 3, pepperoni 4, sausage 5, cheese. It took me a while to actually know and love pizza, as all Italian food seems malleable and finite. Pizza wobbling on my hand seems finite. At the beach, the warm white waves do a peaceful cocoa dance on top of the green ocean seawater. Then the Trieste. Never above it all, I do a lonely dance, searching to make romance. The fallen cup empty now, empty as the quiet sky, like a small boat, the empty bow. After money, there is but one. At Starbucks, there is but one green leaf on which to write poems like I wrote the week before at each flight of fancy before Shelley. Only a Libra, said Mad September as he looked me right in the eye. At nearly 6 o'clock, the sun going down among the clouds over the moody sunset. Snap to colors, and the clocks in your head will start dancing to the stars. I'm trivial among toads, I said to my mind, sitting, talking, laughing gently to its dancing bear of a bow. Sonnet, Mother's Birthday. The wind flung me along my tortuous way towards the phenomenon awards. The dynamo called Market Street, among beggars beseeching shoppers anon. A subdued Halloween, cards for mother, of course, not tarry to her, thrifty Scorpio the throng. I almost jogged by in a hurry, stopping by the post office, half filled with quietude. I scurry back to the library, half filled. Another hard, sharp Wednesday eve, not face to face. I only believe. Let's see. Palms. Only the chatting midnight rain beats down from its sultry showers, berates a unicorn upon its sultry towers, chimes from its nocturne time again, wetting its lips upon my eaves of pain. Its cold branches tell of the hours, laughter and lust become ill, sours the bleak covenant we call the sea. Gods and princesses all begat a nimby-voiced, goat-bearded boy. Odysseus set sail, we never saddle on your passions and penance. Destroy the harp of plenty we pluck through the day standing. Bid the sun adieu. Thank you.
Next is Christiane, followed by Marcia Campbell, Louis Martin, and me. Let's hear it for Christiane.
Good job, Owen.
Well, it's good to be back. I first came to San Francisco in 1960 and read it at the Coffee Gallery in North Beach. And I believe I was the youngest one there. Tonight I may be the oldest one here.
Join the club, man.
Also in the late 60s, there was a very exuberant reading here at a place called the Blue Unicorn. And it's now a laundromat, I think. These are all very recent, incidentally. Half Cherokee, half sister, lost in the reeds on the family farm. She was not approved for the tribal grounds. She fled to East Oakland in a dark jazz dive off Jack London Square. It was as though she were paid in shots. She died before she was old enough to vote. So much for the melting pot. This is a little quiz. If anyone who has the answer. Who was born in Dublin, moved to Paris, assisted a nearsighted mentor, resisted unwanted advances from the mentor's deranged daughter, published a critical study of an eccentric French novelist, regularly played chess with an innovative French artist, was stabbed by a Parisian pimp and nearly died, published stories and plays, married, assisted in the French resistance, and maintained a lifelong relationship with an erudite young lover. No. Anyone else?
Sam Beckett.
That's it. Samuel Beckett.
Yeah.
Rereading Daisy Miller. Certainly not because she was from Schenectady. Rather, the sentimental journey skirts Geneva, Switzerland, where, for an enchanted moment, there had been, unfortunately, a brief encounter that demure damsel, imbued with the worthiest of U.S. heartland virtues. She was compelling and attainable. If only she had been an apparition. Earth, desecrated by arrogant breeding, felonious theft of innocent life, may be the Vedas and koans, the commandments and beatitudes, the creeds and laws are dangerously unnatural. Forbear injustice, boas and rattlers and garters. One may devour the other, and the survivor may choke, as if what you change changes. The Seven Hills. In Roma, legacy of civilization and coordination. In Lisboa, historical exploration and discovery. In San Francisco, ambience of compassion and understanding. These three cities have the following hills in common: birth, hunger, speech, education, dance, love, death. There are also 7 hills in purgatory: civilization, coordination, exploration, discovery, compassion, understanding. And the 7th hill, a refuge for any plant or animal, is off limits to mankind. It has no name, and its conical peak, higher than the surrounding hills, points to the stellar sources of life that matters. Thank you.
Okay, next is Marcia Kimball.
All right.
Thank you. We're going to read 2 poems that are recent. First one is called Down on Eddy Street. You are my selfhood, liveliness, drawing lines in the sand made of crushed rivers. You are my tender world. I want a chair that I may sit beside you and feel your spirit lift against the storms of everyday loneliness. Walking with sore feet against cement and rubble, I saw a creature struggling to rise by his knees and elbows with the greatest determination to remain conscious. I walked by him, afraid that if I looked back he would fall, then I would fall. His formerly frantic legs lost their step. Their crash against the ground was noiseless, unbearable. The creature's face and hands burned his jacket bright blue. They hung on him like loose skin. There were passers-by balancing bravely on the twisting sidewalk below their gaze. But he was the one who refused, time and time again, to die and die again. And this is from last week's Robert Harry's class. Changing shoreline. When everyone breathed in and out, it was like the ocean catching its breath and exhaling. That was the sky watching. That was like little machines in the air watching. That was me being watched by the forces for good. I took revenge on the forces for evil by not letting them breathe. Not that they wanted to anyway. Because by not breathing they could remain evil. The forces of the sky began to forget how to breathe. And I began to drown in small waters unsafe for humankind. And so I fell silently to the shore and let the forces for evil wash over me, as there were no more waves or sky, only a burning sun, and I turned out to be a shell because my body had turned into a shell, a bone phone, or something that was useless on nobody's shore, because I had then become nothing but a dial tone. And the sky came down and lay on the place where my body had been. So it was like a soft blue blanket covering nothing, just a dial tone. Thank you. Wonderful performance here. Next is Louis Martin. Please welcome Louis.
Voila.
Okay, I'm having a little different summer. I'm doing some Shakespeare in the park and some Wordsworth in the park. And although the rappers and the hip hoppers think of these guys as old dead punks, I rather still like them. So here are just a couple. My daughter says these are perfectly acceptable to do. Here goes. This is from Cymbeline. Fear no more the heat of the sun, nor the furious winter's rages. Thou thy worldly task hast done, home art gone, and ta'en thy wages. Golden lads and girls all must as chimney sweepers come to dust. Fear no more the frown of the great, thou art past the tyrant's stroke. Care no more to clothe the need, to thee the reed is as the oak. The spectre learning physic must all follow, listen, come to dust. Fear no more the lightning flash, nor the all-dreaded thunderstone. fear not slander, censure rash. Thou hast finished joy and love. All lovers young, all lovers must consign to thee and come to dust. No exerciser harm thee, nor no witchcraft charm thee. Ghost unlaid forbear thee, nothing ill come near thee. Quiet consummation have, and renowned be thy grave. William Shakespeare. And now a guy I love too, and this is Wordsworth. I often feel like I'm chewing on his name, Wordsworth, you know, sort of gagging or something, but this is the Daffodils. Actually, I spent a bunch of time in China with 5 Chinese guys translating this into Chinese, and so hopefully I remember it. This is in English, though. I wandered lonely as a cloud that floats on high o'er vales and hills, when all at once I saw a crowd, a host of golden daffodils. Beside the lake, beneath the trees, fluttering, dancing in the breeze, continuous as the stars that shine and twinkle on the Milky Way, they stretched in never-ending line along the margin of a bay. 10,000 saw I at a glance, tossing their heads in sprightly dance. The waves beside them danced, but they outdid the sparkling waves in glee. A poet could not but be gay in such a jocund company. I gazed and gazed, but little thought what wealth the show to me had brought. For oft when on my couch I lie in vacant or in pensive mood, they flash upon that inward eye which is the bliss of solitude. And then my heart with pleasure fills and dances with the daffodils. An inspirational piece with that one. And whoops, fingers here. Then this is one more of Wordsworth, just a short little piece, called The World is Too Much With Us. The world is too much with us. Late and soon, getting and spending, we lay waste our powers. Little we see in nature that is ours. We have given our hearts away a sordid boon. The sea that bears your bosom to the moon, the winds that will be howling at all hours, and are upgathered now like sleeping flowers. For this, for everything, we are out of tune. It moves us not. Great God, I'd rather be a pagan supple than a creed outworn. So might I, standing on this pleasantly, have glimpses that would make me less forlorn. Have sight of Proteus rising from the sea, or hear old Titan blow his wreathed horn. Merci.
Next is me, followed by Blake, and by Bruce Fessenden, and then Blake. So I just have 3 little ones. The first one's called the Poetry Cafe. Here in the Poetry Cafe, with meat and onions frying in the air, powerful souls stirring words of crazy people, of dead people, of people with heartfelt feelings, of medicated people and clear people, the sick and the healthy, published and unpublished. I am in love with young poets. Their words strung together like jeweled necklaces, gorgeous and pointed and emanating from the power source of youth. Undeterred by the rocky roads ahead of them, they tell truth to the assholes who have hurt them and determined to live as they skip town, so to speak. Their bright eyes, pride shine with each phrase they compose, and I think, I wish I could have written like that when I was young. So good, so good. By the way, if you haven't signed in yet to read, we'll have a break eventually, and then you can sign in for the second half. The second one I wrote after reading the cover story in the Chronicle today about humpback whales and how they're all congregating around the Monterey Bay to eat their gorging on anchovies. Anyway, welcome to the humpback whales. more arriving every day. No Republicans on the beach shouting, only kayakers quietly floating out to greet you, massive creatures. Arriving to lunch feed on schools of anchovies near the coast, big-hearted kindness closing in toward us whom they should not trust, fluke salute, spy hop, or full breach pirouette and crash into the calm sea. Welcome, beautiful giants, emissaries from nature. All we get to do is watch in awe. This last one is called Waiting. I wait for a certain someone to call. I wait for Bart to arrive. I wait for the Muni bus. I'm waiting for school to start so I can wait for the train to go to Davis. I wait for the poets to arrive. I wait for my food. I wait for some to finish reading. I wait for ideas to come, which requires wakefulness and inspiration. So I wait for the muse. Yesterday I waited at the post office for my number to be called. I waited for the doctor at my appointment. I wait and will wait again. The only sure thing about life is death, taxes, and waiting. But I have decided to stop waiting, which is really a euphemism for resentment and impatience and perhaps anger in the whiny child sense. What I need is to pack my books and writing tablet and rejoice for these extra quiet moments. They are unpredictable, but I ready myself against anger, resentment, impatience, and unpredictability with literature that takes me places without leaving my chair. Soon others will have to wait for me as I return from Oz to Earth. Only then will I be available. Bruce Fessenden, please welcome.
Hello, everybody. I've got a book out. I'm a published writer. It's called Crimson Coat, and several of these are about my father, who died a few years ago. Anyway, this one's called The Fool. I'm not sure who the fool was. Actually, I was thinking of a Quicksilver Messenger Service song. I came from nowhere. You took me in, you lifted your skirt, you made me feel right at home. We collected marbles, old lamps, picture frames. We scoured the second-hand stores, combed through basements, the disorder of my life more perfect than a movie star's face. I slipped the old nun a few silver coins. She handed me a biscuit made of corn. She never looked up, but I could feel her praises. The retarded boy is measuring his sticks. Time is short, you better get it right. Too far to the left and you're up against the rocks. Too far to the right and the current's unpredictable. All that weight just slows you down. I kept my troubles, the rest tossed overboard. My dad moved out west, hoping for a better life, hoping he'd finally get it right. Looking for order and harvesting chaos, he imposed his will upon the world in his own inimitable way. We buried him in his crimson coat, worn at the sleeves and missing a few buttons. The cops knew it was him by the color. We held a remembrance at the boarding house. We circled around a piano and sang a medley of his favorite songs. Camaraderie and good cheer flowed into the wee hours. Lady behind the desk was dancing a jig. He and that lady did crossword puzzles together and complained about the wars. Her time is going to hang a little heavier now that he is gone. Tears of the angels plop out of the pine trees, sit silent on the forest floor. I could have done better. I could have tried harder. I got no idea what held me back. I sharpened my pencils, raised my hand in class. In the end, the words never came out right.